Okay, just checking in. Molly, are we started?
Yep, we're started. People are coming in now.
Excellent. Well, welcome everyone. We're just waiting a couple of minutes to get some critical mass joining this webinar. In the meantime, I invite you all to complete this poll. You can either take a picture of the QR code and vote. It's really just for us to know how familiar you might be with our platform. And yeah, thank you very much for joining today. I see I'm starting to get some numbers. Many people haven't used ClimateWatch. That's actually pretty good. You're going to learn a lot today about the platform. Excellent. Molly, do you think we should wait one more minute, or are we good to get started?
I think we're good to get started, Leo. Thanks.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you everyone for participating in this quick poll, just so filling the gap at the beginning. So now we're gonna get started. Welcome everyone. My name is Leo, and I'm the Outreach and Data Partnership Manager for ClimateWatch. I'll be the one presenting to you today a little bit about ClimateWatch and doing the live demo of the platform. I'm joined today by my colleague Mengping Ge. She's our technical lead and expert, and she'll be helping me with the technical and difficult questions that you may have about the platforms, NDCs, and other climate commitments. We also have on the call Molly Freeman, who we just heard. She's the one helping us with our communications effort. And we also have Nathan Caldwell. He's a research associate for the climate program, who will be briefly presenting a new tool from the UNFCCC. I want to mention that today it's actually a very special training that we're doing. We've been conducting around 30 other custom-made trainings during this year. They were much smaller than this open webinar, and they were aimed to help either ministries of environment from different countries or some key organizations around the world on how they can really leverage all the free and open data that we have to really help drive climate ambition through the work that they do. So this is something new that we're trying today. We're offering this in 2 different time zones so that we can be as comprehensive as possible. So we'll see how this goes, and hopefully we can do more of this in the future. Now, a good word about how this usually goes. We like to see this not just as a training, but rather as a two-way conversation. So we really encourage you to participate and get all the questions and all the feedback that you can have. We usually encourage people to unmute themselves and ask the questions. Since there are so many people today, I really invite you to just leave your questions into the chat box. My colleagues are going to be responding to them also in the chat box, but also we'll be bringing them up so that we can discuss them. So with this, I'm going to get right into the agenda for today. I'll first be doing a quick intro on what ClimateWatch is and how that really fits into the background on the work that the World Resources Institute is doing on climate. Then I'm going to step back and leave the floor to Nathan, who's going to talk about this very new interesting tool that is coming up soon. And after that, I'm going to be jumping back to show you really a live demo of what the platform is about. And then we'll have plenty of time for discussions and really get all your questions out. So now getting started, I'll first cover what WRI is. So you may be familiar, but WRI, it's a global think tank. And one of the things that WRI does is to work on data. Right now, you're talking to us that we are leading the ClimateWatch platform that focuses on everything related to climate commitments, greenhouse gas emissions, but we also have plenty of other platforms and resources focused on different topics, such as our famous Global Forest Watch, which focuses on forests, deforestation, many other topics. And we also have other data platforms that work on energy, water, and many other topics. So I really encourage you to explore them more in detail. Now, stepping back just a little bit, when I mentioned that Climate Watch focuses on climate commitments, I want to give a quick overview on what these commitments are and where they're coming from. So you might be familiar with the Paris Agreement, which is a legally binding international treaty on climate change. Its goal is to limit global warming to well below 2, preferably to 1.5 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial levels. The Paris Agreement works on a 5-year cycle of increasingly ambitious climate action carried out by countries. In every cycle, countries have made their nationally determined contributions, I'll be referring to them as NDCs, communicating the actions that they will take to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions in order to reach this goal that the Paris Agreement establishes. To better frame these efforts toward the long-term goal, the Paris Agreement invited countries to formulate and submit long-term low greenhouse gas emissions development strategies, also referred to long-term strategies for short. These commitments provide the long-term horizon to the NDCs. Now, unlike the NDCs, these are not mandatory, but however, they do place the NDCs into the context of countries' long-term planning and development priorities, providing a vision and direction for future development. In addition, countries are encouraged to adopt a net zero target by mid-century. Now, having covered these main climate commitments, I want to briefly speak about what Climate Watch is. So as you may know, first of all, it's a website. It is a hub of hundreds of credible datasets and hundreds of thousands of data points. It is a visualization tool that provides a place for quick insights as well as deep dives. We offer open data on countries' past and future GHG emissions and granular information on countries' climate targets, such as the nationally determined contributions, long-term strategies, national policies, sustainable development goals, and so on. Our ultimate goal is to bring transparency, but also to make your work possible and easier to help everyone ultimately drive climate action. We bring together insights that would not have been possible just by looking at the PDFs that countries submit to the UNFCCC. And here, just a quick caveat is that we are an informational platform in the sense that we don't make suggestions on what each country should do, but we do provide all the data so that you can make your own informed decision. Now, to quickly cover some of our goals, last year we focused a lot on taking the tool to the next step by updating and creating 8 new modules, many of which I'll be showing you today. And this year, we're really focusing on engagement and making sure that the world knows that there's this great platform available and for free. That's also why we're conducting this type of webinars. As you may imagine, we don't do this alone. We're supported by a group of reputable organizations that help us bring together the most comprehensive data on GHG emissions, NDCs, long-term strategies on the web, as well as funders who are key in developing the tool. Now, to give you a quick sense on how Climate Watch is used by others, here we have a quick overview on some of the key users that we serve. One of our main target audience is government users and organizations working directly with governments, helping them in their climate commitments. We're proud to share that our CAPE data, soon to be called just Climate Watch data, has been cited directly into 23 different NDCs, which for us, it's really reassuring because it shows that we're a trustworthy source of information. In addition, we also have researchers and major companies from around the world. Now, to make it a little bit less abstract, here we have some direct quotes that we get. If you have already explored Climate Watch, when you download data, we ask you how you intend to use that data. It really helps us to understand how we can really create a change in the world. So we can see here, taken directly from these reports, that we have the cases of ministries using our CAPE data to inform the development of their NDCs and long-term strategies, like the governments of Tunisia, Mali, and Myanmar. And we also have other examples, including using our data to inform investment decisions, mentioned by the IFC, and reporting and transparency, as well as many others. And now quickly wrapping up, this is a snapshot on the main modules that we have that we'll be covering now in a second. So having covered that, I'll give the floor to Nathan so that he can talk a little bit about this new tool that we'd like to promote here. So Nathan, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Leo, and hello and good day to everyone. My name is Nathan Cogswell, and I'm just going to take a minute or two to tell you about a new tool that we will be launching shortly. on exploring reporting under the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change and the Paris Agreement. So under the UNFCCC, the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change and the Paris Agreement, countries have a number of reporting requirements, documents, information that they submit, providing information on their greenhouse gas inventories, on the state and progress of climate action, on adaptation efforts and priorities, and on support provided, received, needed, and so on. Climate change reporting is critical to ensure transparency of the UNFCCC system and helps build trust among countries. During the reporting process, countries follow expertly negotiated guidance, which has evolved over time, and that guidance specifies what data and information to collect and how to present that in their climate change reports. Our tool, this tool that we will be launching very shortly, will allow users to explore the different reporting requirements across the different reporting requirements and the different reports required in depth by comparing where requirements are similar or where they are different, tracking where they have evolved, seeing what elements, what information is newly required in reports. For example, under the Paris Agreement's transparency framework, new requirements for reporting every 2 years will replace existing requirements for reporting every 2 years. And so our tool will allow you to see how the guidance has changed, how it has evolved, where it may have stayed the same. You will be able to compare the reporting guidance side by side, and there will be additional tools built in to help you compare where different elements of that guidance is different or remains the same. And so our tool will include the requirements across 7 different reports, greenhouse gas inventories for Annex 1 parties, the biennial reports for Annex 1 parties, biennial update reports for non-Annex 1 parties, biennial transparency reports for all countries under the Paris Agreement, national communications also for Annex 1 parties, including 1999 guidance and revised guidance from 2019, as well as national communications for non-Annex 1 parties. So for example, you might be able to, or you would be able to compare what the national communications, how the national communications guidance differs for Annex 1 parties and non-Annex 1 parties, compare how biennial reporting under the existing biennial reporting for Annex 1 parties and non-Annex 1 parties differs. So these are just a couple of different ways you'll be able to explore and compare the guidelines, the reporting guidelines under the UNFCCC transparency framework. So I will leave it there. We will share more information once the tool launches very shortly, and I hope you might be able to find some use and that it will be useful to you. But let me pass back to Leo, and if there are any questions, feel free to use the Q&A function on Zoom. So back to you, Leo. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Nathan, for presenting this great tool that's coming up. And yes, again, just reminding everyone, all the questions that you may have, feel free to type them down into the chat box. So now I'm going to do a quick stop sharing of my screen to change my other screen, where I already have all the different tabs for the live demo section. So this technical stop, let me share and here. Can you, Molly or Mengbin, confirm that you can see the screen?
You're all good, Leo. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. So here we are. This is the Climate Watch platform. This is the homepage. And from here, I want to call your attention on a couple of things. Also, just quickly stepping back, what I'll be doing now is to first have a quick run of all the different modules so that you know that they exist and what they mainly cover. And then I'm going to dive deeper into 3 of them that I think might be the most relevant for you in this lead up to COP26. So to start with the homepage, from here, I want to call your attention to 3 main things. The first one will be the stop bar menu. From here, you can access all the different modules that we have. There's a new update that we've made in this new feature, this notification bell that lets you know what are all the latest documents and NDCs that we have updated. We also put in here, once we have some new data, some whether it's like GHG emissions data, long-term strategies, or whatever other documents some countries have submitted, and we have already processed and added into our platform. So I really encourage you to come here and subscribe to our newsletter that we send out every month if you haven't done so yet. And one more thing from this page is that here at the bottom, you may remember that I mentioned that we're an informational platform. So all the information that you will see on our platform, it's simply the facts. But having said that, our experts at the WRI climate program, they do take our facts and then convert them into opinions and other pieces of work, either in an insights document or blog posts or articles. And we do have links to them here in the highlighted stories at the bottom of the homepage. So really encourage you to explore them if you want to know what our experts think about latest countries' NDC submissions, or for example, how different NDCs are stacking up. We have some pretty interesting blog posts coming up either tomorrow or in the next couple of days. And here another flag that I'll do. We're really working to improve the homepage, so you will also be seeing some changes here to basically better explain how ClimateWatch works. Now, if you're first-time user or you really want to start using ClimateWatch, it really depends on what questions you need to respond to. So let's say that you're working on a specific country, then I'll suggest that you start with our country profile pages. Here, clicking on countries, you will see the world map where you can either hover over different countries and click on them to go to the profile page, write them down here in the list, or simply search through the listing here. For this demo, we're going to cover Chile. So in this case, you're going to see that we have this high-level summary of all the main climate commitments and climate data that we tailor for countries. So most of the data that you'll see here, you'll find much more detailed information into their specific modules. So this is really just a snapshot for you to get a quick idea on what it is. So presenting this page, at the top, we have the UNFCCC document submission. So every single document that a country has submitted to the UNFCCC, you will see here with direct links, whether it's the original document to their NDCs, long-term strategies, or the national communications, biennial reports, and so on. We really facilitate that, all this in this simple timeline. Next, we have information on greenhouse gas emissions that you can see the historical progress on emissions from the country. You will see much more of this into the specific module. We'll also cover information on vulnerability and readiness with some key indicators on the key hazards and some other high-level values on readiness and vulnerability. We cover high-level values on nationally determined contributions overview. We've chosen these 6 different indicators to give you this very high-level snapshot on what the NDC, which are usually very long documents, can be understood in within just a couple of sentences. We cover high-level information on the long-term strategy whenever the country has it. In this case, Chile doesn't have one. That's why it just says country hasn't submitted one. We provide another module showing all the linkages between the NDCs and the Sustainable Development Goals. So every time, as you might be familiar with, the 17 SDG goals, they have individual targets. So our data team goes into every single NDC and matches all the different connections that are within every particular SDG target with the NDC document. I can also cover this later on. And then finally, for this country profile page, we do have this partnership with the LSE and the Grantham Research Institute. So ClimateWatch really focuses on everything that is international and global on what the country is bringing forward to the UNFCCC. Now, if you want to have some more down the line information on what the country is doing internally within their national laws and policies, you can access this section to see what are the laws and policies enacted by the country. So it's really like a deeper level of information going more into the national scale. This is a good place to start if you're focusing on individual countries and you want to know how they're doing overall in terms of climate. If you're working on sectoral information, I want to quickly plug in this sectoral section that we have on agriculture, when you can find more information on what are the drivers of emissions and really get more information to help you understand what are the country's actions mentioned in the NDCs. We have some plugs to the power sector with a link to the Resource Watch platform, which is another data platform from WRI that you can also explore. Next, we have the commitment sections. And here's really the most data-rich part that we have on ClimateWatch. You might remember this graphic showing the Paris Agreement and the goal, and then the three colorful things with the climate commitments. So we had the NDCs, the long-term strategies, and the net zero targets. So we're really focused first on the NDCs. And for that one, I want to show you the NDC Enhancement Tracker. Basically, as I mentioned, these NDCs come into these 5-year cycles where countries are bringing forward their new submissions. However, they don't bring them all together at the same time. So we do provide this tracker to show you which countries have submitted the new or updated NDCs and what they entail. So you can see, first of all, this visualization, where we can tell you, for example, even though we're just a couple of weeks before COP, only 144 countries have submitted new or updated NDCs, representing roughly 50% of the global emissions. And out of these 144, only 80 have really enhanced their ambition in terms of the GHG reductions that they promise. So all this data, you can find it more either in this visualization or into this table format. Here, one thing that I would like to suggest you, in case you're interested in what's the latest country that submitted an NDC, you can come here to the dates and then sort it out by the latest ones coming here at the top. I want to mention here, in the past 2 weeks, more than 20 new NDCs have come up. So it kept our data team quite busy going through all the new documents. Now, we have this tracker first to show you which countries brought them the new documents, but this only shows you the latest ones. Now, if you want to have all the information and really the disaggregated indicators, you can go to our Explore NDC page. So from here, you can move to the Explore NDC. And here's really where all the richness and where lots of the richness from Climate Watch comes in. So I can show you here. This platform has tons of different categories and indicators that you can change and decide between different visualizations. So for example, you can see by default, it gives you what are the new or updated NDCs, only first NDC or only INDC that a country has submitted. And then you can see, for example, if you're interested in mitigation, you can click on mitigation and then check, for example, what's the GHG coverage that countries have, or really what are other indicators that we have. We have currently every NDC, we have disaggregated that into more than 160 of these indicators, and we offer the option to visualize many of them. So you can see, for example, mitigation. If you're interested in the GHG coverage, you can see which countries are covering which gases. And then again, with many other things that you can choose from. Here to mention again, you have the map and visualization here at the top, and then always we include the table view where you can filter down either by keywords or to sort the information through these different categories. I'll be showing this module much more in depth because if you click on the different countries, it allows you to see all the analysis that we do. Same with a keyword search. So applying that in just for a couple more minutes. Now, I mentioned these NDCs. I want to get next with the long-term strategies. Here we do something similar to the NDC Enhancement Tracker, where we're following what are the countries that have come up with a new long-term strategy. So here you can see how many we have. Right before we have parties with long-term strategy, 33. I think yesterday we heard about a new country, and then Pink can correct me in the chat box. So it's maybe 34, and we'll be updating this during the day. Again, visualization, and then the table format here underneath. And then once again, similarly with the net zero tracker, if you're interested in knowing which countries have pledged or have it already into a political document that they are going to be carbon neutral by mid-century, here you can see which ones they are. And the indicators that we have not only show you which ones have either a targeting law, targeting policy, or targeting political pledge, but you can also sort through what's the net zero target year. The Paris Agreement invites countries to submit them by mid-century, but that leaves room for countries to really decide what's the target year that they may have. And all this information is available here. And underneath, we have the table that shows you what are the original sources that we take to really put into the map. Now, having covered these three main documents, a really good thing to do is to see whether a country has been making any progress or not into their commitments. So we do provide here another module called Compare All Targets. So in this one that I'm going to quickly cover so that I can then focus more on the other modules, you can see this table view. All the countries appear in the list, and then every single column represents a different document. This module in particular allows you to compare up to 3 documents. So let's say, following again the case of Chile. You can type down here Chile, and we can say, for example, we want to know, if we're focusing on one country, how the country has been evolving through the years into their commitments. So you can choose either the 3 documents from the country, or you can also work at the regional level and say, okay, I'm working on Latin America, for example. So I want to know what the latest update from Chile compares to their neighboring country, Argentina, also where I'm currently based, and how it also compares to Paraguay. So once you click on the 3 documents, you can go to compare, and then you'll have side by side these comparisons. As I mentioned earlier, all these different titles are indicators that our data team has really put together, and they're comprehensive against all different documents and all different countries, and all different countries, different submissions, ranging from INDCs to the latest updated NDC. So you can quickly see here, without having to read all these 3 long documents, that, for example, how they differentiate. You can see that Chile has their type of commitments. It's a GHG target and non-GHG target, whereas Argentina and Paraguay includes a GHG target only. You can see what are their GHG targets and many other indicators that you can simply explore, whether you're interested in finance, fairness, and ambition, or any of the other tabs that we have in here. We have indicators already for mitigation, adaptation, and sectoral information. So really, we try to simplify your work based on the most relevant and the most sought out indicators. So all these with the main climate commitments. I also want to cover quickly what we have in terms of sustainable development goals and the NDCs. So here we provide this map showing you the 17 different SDGs. Here it is. The 17 SDGs and how they're being interpreted and taken by all different countries' NDCs. So if you hover over any of them, you can see this shaded map, which ones are the ones that have the most mentions in NDCs. And if you click on any of them, let's say that we're interested in renewable energy. We can go to the affordable energy, SDG 7, and then see, for example, the target 7.2, which is to, by 2030, to increase the share of renewable energy. If you click on that one, you'll see all the countries that have at least one target linked. And if you click on them, it'll take you to the specific section within the NDC document where there's a direct link between increasing the share of renewable energy and how that it's been mentioned or considered into the NDC document. So we'll see, usually when I share screen, the platform, here it goes. So there you have, in the first NDC, how it's been mentioned, in Chile's NDC, which says that by law, it regards that by 2025, 20% of the energy will be from non-conventional renewable energies. So if your work is directly related to an SDG, then you can really check into that to find the connections. Now I've covered the commitments. I'll be coming back to a couple of these modules in a minute, but I also want to cover 2 more of our modules. So the historical GHG emissions section, here by far this is our most popular one. It's also how this whole platform started with K data. Here, a couple of things to mention. At the top, we have the visualization with the timeline on how emissions from different countries have been evolving over time. We have the references here and the table down below, and all the different indicators that you can choose from. Now, the first questions that we have, since you can see here from data source, we have 4 different data sources from different sections. 3 of them are from independent research institutions, KATE being the one developed by WRI, and then official data from the UNFCCC, which we separate between UNFCCC Annex 1 and non-Annex 1 data. That is because of the methodological and reporting methodological differences that they have that really doesn't allow to compare them side by side in the same graphic. Now in this module, usually we do get a lot of questions via email. And the main questions that we get is, what data source should I use? And the answer to that is really, it depends. And it really depends on what's the sectoral coverage that you want to have, what are the gases that you're interested in, what's the time span that you need to work with. So based on all that data, really, it's a data source that you should use. So not any of them is the best. It's really depending on what your needs are. Maybe you're interested in what's been the evolution over 100 years in the emissions. Then perhaps big data, which goes all the way back to 1850, might be the best one for your work. However, PEAK doesn't really cover all different gases or all different sectors that, for example, CAPE does. So it's really you need to assess which ones might be the best. And for that, we've created this table where you can see what are the main differences between all these different sources. You can see CAPE, PEAK, UNFCCC, and GCP, and how they differ. What are the sections that they include, sectors, gas coverage, timeliness, also the time lag that I have. For example, CAPE data, the latest values that we have is 2018. Maybe you want the latest one, and those will be from GCP, although they only cover CO2 emissions, whereas CAPE cover all gases. Having chosen the data source, you can also filter them down by regions already established by us, whether you're interested in the European Union or the top emitters or specific countries. You can simply choose between them, and then the visualization is going to be automatically updated. You can also then further filter down by the sectors that you're interested in. Maybe you're just interested in energy, so you bring that out. Here, plugin CAPE has subsectors for energy. So if you click on the arrow, it will show you all the subsectors within the energy category that you have. For the demo, I'm just going to keep this total, including LTS. You can also choose between the gases. By default, it comes with all the gases. We also offer some calculations, for example, totals per capita, emissions by country, and all these different options. And then you can also show data by region, sectors, or gases. If we put it by gases, for example, we can quickly see which one is the one that takes the most of all the gases out there. If it loads up, here it is. So you can see CO2. Maybe you want to know what percentage that really means. Then you can change it to stacked area chart. And you can see that CO2 emissions made up 74% of total global GHG emissions. And then all this data, you can either download that as a PNG for an image or as a CSV file that you can then further down digest and change and make your own visualizations. Now, one last module that I want to cover, that it's a new addition that we made this year and it's quickly becoming quite popular. It's the key visualizations module. So we do a lot of visuals for the WRI blog post, and now we have this place where we bring them all together. So really the idea, we know that we have so much hard data. So what we try to do with these visualizations is to help you communicate what's going on the policy sector and the emission sector. So this circle chart, for example, can quickly show you how, for example, China's emissions are really roughly the same as the next top 3 emitters. So China's emissions alone count as the United States, the European Union, and India's emissions. So you can really, translate all these raw numbers into a visual image that can help you communicate a message. And all these visuals are really very easy to share, either by embeds or by taking screenshots and download the images. And so with that, I've covered pretty much all the main modules so that you know what we're covering and what the platform is about. I'd like to stop for a second and get some questions to make this at least a little more interactive. So I don't know, Molly or Mengping, if you have any questions that you'd like to bring up.
Yeah, hi, Leo. So we have one question from Max about whether we can see if a country is on track of achieving a net zero target on the tracker.
On the tracker, that's a really good question. So to find out whether a country is on track or not, that really requires basically implementation. And the information that we cover here on Climate Watch, it's more on the policy side and what the country is bringing forward, or at least saying that it's going to do. I would say the closest you can get to that, you can go to the country profile. Let's say a country that has a net zero target. Argentina has one in a political pledge. One thing that can take you a step closer would be going down here to the targets and laws and policies and really see if there's any, climate law already that the country has passed saying that they commit to be net zero by X date, or at least that they're phasing out some type of like coal energy or oil from their energy matrix, or at least requiring to have some share of renewable energy. I'll say that would be one way in which Climate Watch can help you assessing whether it's getting on track or not. Otherwise, we always plug in another great tool that is out there that's called the Climate Action Tracker. And they do make assessments on whether countries are really, their NDCs are on track or off track to the overall goal of the Paris Agreement. I don't know, Mingping, if you'd like to add something else to that question.
Not, I have another question that just came in. Is there a way to see the data for all EU countries by country, or do I have to select each one myself?
Great. I assume that the data that you're thinking about might be the historical GHG emissions. Yes, we do have pre-filtered regions, so you don't have to go through the hassle of going through that alone. Let me just cover here. So instead of choosing the world, which comes by default, you can choose the European Union. And that already includes the 27 countries. And you can see here all of them. I hope this helps.
Great,
Cool.
thanks. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, do you want me to respond to one more question, or should I just cover deeply these Explore NDC module?
Yeah, maybe why don't we do a deep dive of that? Thanks.
Sounds great. So there were a few more things I want to cover from this one in particular. So I mentioned that you have already all these categories and indicators. We want to work on finance and support and then check the different indicators that we have. You can also go directly and click into a specific country. So from here, you'll get this high-level summary. You might remember this from the country profile. So this is just like a snippet on the main things from these countries' NDCs. Now, let's say that you work on a sectoral, you work for a ministry, or you just, you only care about water or some other specific things. Then you can go to the overview and then check through all the different indicators. I quickly cover this with the compare all function that allows you to put basically the same feature side by side with different documents. There's one other really cool feature from this. Before I jump into that, quickly flagging that we have here the option to either download the original PDF from the updated first NDC or any other document that you're choosing here. So you don't need to go to the NDC registry to download that, simply one click, or to be the full text. This full text, it's the HTML version that our data team makes of every single country's NDCs, so that it's searchable by our search engines and also by yours in case that you want to, click for some keywords. And now speaking about keywords, this Explore NDC has this hidden gem that we're trying to find a way to make it more prominent. So whatever topic, as specific as it can be that you might be working on, you can see how that is being reflected on all countries' NDCs. So a good example that I like to bring up, let's say you're working on mangroves, for example. You can type on the word, click enter, and it will take you to this NDC search page that will show you not only the map with all the documents and countries that have some mentions, but also all this information. So first, it will tell you on how many documents and how many countries this keyword in particular, it's being represented. So you can see 101 documents, representing 50 countries. And you can also see how the countries that include mangroves into our NDCs are the ones that actually have mangroves, at least geographically. And then if you're interested in a particular country, or if you want to see what the countries are mentioning, you can see in this list, country by country and document by document. For example, Colombia, you can see how there are 15 results, and you can explore here within the paragraph, what's the context. So it might be sustainable use of mangroves, blue carbon ecosystem. That might be the phrase that really calls your attention. So you can click on that one, and it will take you to the specific area on the NDC. So you can see whether it's relevant or not for your work. But really, this opens a lot of possibilities for whatever topic or specific area that you're working on, whether it's green buildings, another topic that's getting a lot of attention lately, it's nature-based solutions. And here, a quick tip. If you type down the word within brackets, it's going to look for it with the 3 words together. Otherwise, it's going to look for the different words separately. So nature-based solutions, you can see that 4 documents represented 4 countries mentioned them. So Honduras, Andorra, Belize, and Brunei. And you can see in what context that's been mentioned. Usually they appear here at the bottom. So now adopting a nature-based solution approach and how that's really being featured within the country's NDCs. Here it goes. At least from the trainings, these features has really been one of the ones that people are the most excited about. And then finally, this deeper dive, I want to show you that with the Explore long-term strategies, it works pretty much the same as with the NDCs. If you click on any given country, it'll take you to this page that looks pretty much the same as the NDC, but now it's only containing long-term information. You get the high-level summary at the beginning, and then these 4 different tabs show you all the indicators that we have predefined, that we've analyzed all the different long-term strategies throughout different countries. So you can see how they compare, for example, between different countries and within the same country, how it's been changed. So yeah, I think that really gives us plenty of time to have this open conversation. I know I've been covering a lot today on climate commitments and really many things that the platform has. So now I'm really curious on what you think about this. How do you think this can help your work? And if you have any specific questions that you might be working through for your day-to-day job, please feel free to type it down so we can cover that and hopefully help you with the work that you're carrying out and save you time. So with that, Molly, if you want to bring us some other questions, mention some other things.
Yeah, so we have a question here about, let's see, what is the timeline for when the data is uploaded? Is it uploaded in real time or does it take longer?
Awesome. Thank you for bringing that up. So the timeline, it's basically, we're subscribed to the RSS from the UNFCCC and the NDC registry. So as soon as a country submits a new document to the UN, we get a notification. And then as soon as we see that, our data team reads the document and get the high level information. So pipeline would be, first of all, NDC Enhancement Tracker. What I mentioned, we add that in here so that you know that, okay, this country submitted a new NDC, and then we give the high level overview. So we know right away whether the country increased their GHG ambition or if it remained the same. Once we add that into here, the next step is the Explore NDC. So we go into every single NDC with the documents and then disaggregate that into all the 160 indicators that I mentioned earlier, all these different sections that appear there that you can collapse. That's really the next step that we do. The time that it all takes, usually for the NDC tracker, to let you know which one's been the latest, it's usually within the same day that it's been submitted, unless it's been on a weekend. And then this one can take up to a couple of days. And it also depends on the capacity. For example, now, we, with all these new NDCs, like more than 20 inches a week, you'll be surprised. Our data team, it's only 2 full-time people. So they do their best to be, up to speed, but it all depends on capacity. But it's usually just within a couple of days, we have not only high level analysis, but also all the deeper dive. And then next, we'll follow the SDG NDC linkages. Also, all that information is added in here, so you know which ones have completed information.
Thanks, Leo. Next question. Do we have a tool that tracks conditional and unconditional NDC targets?
Yes, so that appears into when you come here. Yeah, there is actually. Mitigation. There's so many indicators that it's hard to find them. I know that we covered that conditional or unconditional. I showed already target. That's like fixed level. I know that it's, if I were within the country, I'm just going to show an overview. Or Mengping, if you have more top of mind. Here, conditionality, unconditional NDC only.
Great.
So the answer is yes.
Thank you. Here's a question from Laura. What is the baseline year for measuring GHG emissions? Is this established by the Paris Accords?
The baseline year. And for this, it's getting more technical. Maybe Mengping, can I get your help? I could also get some remarks.
Yeah, happy to jump in for this question. It's not very clarified, but I'll try to answer it from different angles. In terms of measuring greenhouse gas emissions, the start year of most of the official inventories submitted by countries to the UNFCCC do start from 1990. A few countries start from 1989. And that is also most comprehensive greenhouse gas inventory would start with. 1990 is the start year. If the question is about the base year as a basis for countries to reduce greenhouse gases from, we do have an indicator as well on the base year for GHG targets included in NDCs. There is no official guideline on, of course, which one to use. We've seen many 1990, 2005, it really differs and varies by country. Or if it's asked about, sorry, the baseline scenario that a lot of the NDCs also base their targets on, which would be a baseline scenario target, which means they would reduce emissions comparing to a projected emissions at business as usual. We also call that baseline or BAU and different NDCs. And a lot of countries use 2030, but again, there's also no set rules of which one to use. I hope one of the answers is helpful.
Thank you, Mengping.
Thanks. We have another question here about documents submitted from countries or from prior governments. It might not contain policy goals of the current administration. Do we make any note of this in our database?
Another question for Mengping.
Yeah, happy to jump in on this one as well. I'm actually not quite familiar with this topic, but we have been polling, I think Leo might have shown it in the country profile and the comparison module, is that we do include information on the targets included in countries' domestic laws and legislations. And we pull that information from the Glasgow Research Institute's database. So I probably would defer the question to them, how they dealt with legislation from prior government. But we do have an API that links to their database, so it will be up to date with the experts there on how they would include those legislation documents. But that's definitely a good question. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, and I would add to that, if you come here to this LC page, you can also see the year in which every single law has been passed. So maybe that can give you at least some idea on during which presidential term a law was passed. I'm not familiar if they also mentioned if the law goes back. But here is a really good place to start with our research, at least.
Great. We have a question from Aubrey on if there's a way to see imported emissions for each country.
Imported emissions.
Imported, correct.
Yeah, I just typed that question in chat. Yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, the quick answer is we don't have that on Climate Watch, but one of the data sources that we used for our greenhouse gas emissions module, the Global Carbon Project, they do publish information regarding emissions from imported goods. So we'll kindly refer to the Global Carbon Project for those information. And it's CO2 only, I believe.
Great,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Leo, I think, oh, Mengpin is actually answering the question for you. Let me go on to another one. Let's see.
I can also quickly plug in, since we've been talking about the country profile.
Yeah.
This year, we're also about to release a new version of this page. The idea is really to have some much more data on this. And for folks working on adaptation, that's really going to be one of the main sections where we've put a lot of effort into improving. So you're not only going to have these key indicators in this section, our data team and the adaptation team within WRI has really put together a great research and work that allows you to have linkages between some of the adaptation categories and sectors that they have identified and how they link back to the NDCs. So it's going to work similarly to these SDG NDC linkages, where you can see we have the SDGs as these main categories, and then these dots as the different sections. Similarly, you're going to see this, but with adaptation components. So stay tuned for that. Also, a good moment to plug in again to sign up to our newsletter. We send it out every month, and all these different updates that we have, also have the recordings of this webinar, will be available into that email. You can sign up for that if you can here, sign up for updates in there, or even easier, notification bell, subscribe to updates.
Leo, we have another question here, which I am almost positive is not on Climate Watch, but from Celine, that there are some factors that have been established as contributing to GHG emissions, such as food waste. Is there any data available or plans to integrate such data on Climate Watch?
Yeah, you're correct, Molly. I don't think there's any plans to incorporate that. However, again, with all these more specific topics, I would encourage users to come into our Explore NDC and really check on what countries are bringing forward on, for example, this topic of food waste. Let's just quickly see what we find out. If it loads, you should.
Yeah. I would also add that our food program works on this. So if you go to the WRI homepage and check out some of the initiatives that that food program has, they work very closely on this.
Thanks, Molly, for that plugin. It is 4 mentions. Do we have more questions?
Having a look for you now.
Okay. And then again, I encourage everyone to voice any concerns or comments that you may have. Same with their feedback. Really, all these other updates and changes that we make to our platform. If you come time to time, you'll see that it changes a lot because we do take feedback pretty seriously and work with our developers to constantly improve the platform to make it not only more insightful, but also more accessible. So you can see, for example, we have this dashed underscore. If you hover over that, you can see that all acronyms on our page, they are spelled out. If you hover over and leave it for a couple of seconds, so you can see NDCs, nationally determined contributions. Also plugging in some new features that we'll have. We're going to be offering a web tour. So every time you come into a new page, there'll be here a plug that clicks like open web tour, and it will just take you through the different sections of the page, explaining you basically step by step what you can do. So it's easier for you if you're a first come or first user on any given module. It will assist you in how to use that for your work.
See, a lot of the questions are ones we've already answered. This is a very basic question, Leo. Are we able to share the slide deck that you presented at the beginning with our attendees?
Yes, absolutely. I will be sharing this, I believe, after the training. So we'll make that available.
Great.
And then that just reminded me to a question that we had pretty often. And it's like, if people want to use our data, how should they cite it? Or is it free to use? How they can put into the documents? So if you're using ClimateWatch data, it's absolutely free to use. The only thing that we ask you is that you cite us properly. And here we have in the About page, permissions and licensing, how you can use it. So whether you're planning a course, you are doing a blog post or any other work, absolutely totally free to use our data. We just ask you to cite us.
Great. And then Leo, one final question maybe to round out the training. Why do some countries have negative emissions?
Awesome. Yeah, so if you come to the historical GHG emissions, that's another question that we get pretty often. Let's see, for example, the case of Bhutan. So let's click out the world and write down Bhutan. We can see here, emissions are negative. And also I can address here why we see some big jumps in data. So first of all, why there are some jumps? That is because the LULUCF sector. So it's the land use sector. That one, since it relates to the land use change in forestry, forests work either as an emission source or as a sink. So when it works as a sink, because there are more forests within the geographical coverage of the country that absorbs more CO2 than it emits, it becomes a sink. And in the case of Bhutan, for example, they have been negative in emissions for a couple of years. If we change this to exclude LULUCF, you will see that emissions are only positive. So that might be, if you ever see negative emissions, it's usually related to this sector. And now one more thing to cover about that, you see these big jumps. That's because of our underlying data. So it's for Kate. Kate brings LULUCF data from FAO, and they do assessments every 5 years. So really, that's when they may have these big jumps. So the answer to these differences that you may see, it's also related because this sector in particular has a lot of uncertainty. Here in the information sector section, you can find more information about that. Our underlying data sources, and then again, into our FAQ, we cover many of these here. How significant are uncertainties in the emissions data, particularly in the land use change and forestry sector. So you can see some cases up to 50%.
Great, Leo.
I also see that we.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I see we're going to have 2 more minutes. I don't know, Molly, if you want to do some final comments.
Yeah, thank you so much, Leo, and thanks to everyone for all of your questions. They're great, and we will, as a team, look at these after the training. Just to reiterate, the recording of this will be emailed to you all, and it will also be made available online on the event page where you originally registered on WRI's website. So you'll be able to find that there. And if you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out to me or to Leo, and we'd be happy to get back to you on any more specific questions. So we just appreciate you all joining us today, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending and taking time out of your day to learn more about these great platform. I hope this really helps in your work moving forward. And as Molly mentioned, any questions that you may have, we're really good at getting back to these technical questions. So yeah, thank you and have a great rest of your day.